Hello, once again, Penguins Nation, and welcome to yet another edition of Get Me The Brandy. I am Dan Potash, joined by my colleague at SNP and good friend, Jay Caufield. How are you, buddy?
And good to see you again, Dan. We've had so many games and so many nights we're working together. It's great to see you here in the afternoon as well.
You know, I know that we've dealt with a little snow on this Tuesday morning, and kind of crazy that it was 60 degrees earlier in the day and they got hit with a lot of snow. But we also saw have seen reports of a meteor that entered the atmosphere and may have landed somewhere around either Western PA and Eastern Ohio. I find that odd because I thought the Penguins left a pretty big hole in the sky last night above Ball Arena in Denver with 7 goals and a huge victory over the Avs.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
my goodness,
I,
right?
yeah, Dan. True. And listen, if they had a third goalie, they would have switched to him too. The Penguins were all over them right away, right? I mean, they went through Wedgwood, then they got the Blackwood, and he let in, I think, the first or the second shot he faced. Uh, the Penguins got by him too. They're opportunistic. They got to the goaltenders right away. Their PK was really good, Dan, because Colorado was on the power play 4 times and the Penguins shut them down. So everything we talked about last night in the game, yeah, the Penguins are that good and on a nice roll. And I've been saying this for a while. It isn't just now. I've been saying for a while, and you've heard me say it too, Dan. Penguins were a top 5 team in the NHL, and I think they're climbing that ladder. I really do. I think they've handled the West so well, and we know it's tough coming up. Nothing's easy, but if you continue to get the same good goaltending, we're gonna see games like that. They're good, and they're getting hopefully people back, and we know the injury bug can catch you at any time, but it's great to see. Great game last night in Colorado.
You know, the big headline that we talked about, well, obviously throughout this entire trip, but certainly on the pregame show, was the return of Evgeni Malkin. And I think a lot of
Yeah,
us were kind of wondering what kind of immediate impact would he have rejoining this team, especially without Sidney Crosby? Well, I'll tell you what the
yeah.
impact was: a couple of goals and an assist. Um, what a great return! And it was kind of a roller coaster because within the opening minute he takes a penalty, but then
Yeah,
shortly after
yeah,
that he totally redeems himself. Dumb and Dumber line, by the way.
yeah, yeah. It's so true. I mean, you come back. He's so chomping at the bit to get back in the game, and he's a big aggressive forward. That's one of the best to ever play the game, and he gets into penalty trouble right away. But the Penguins killed it off as we talked about, and then he comes right out of the box and then does Malkin things, right? So yeah, I think when we've been so used for all these years watching, Crosby, Letang, and Malkin do things like this, and again, they have the flair for the dramatic too, right? They come back, he comes back, scores right away, does it again, sets up another. Yeah, you can't put a price tag on what it means to have the elite talent that we've seen come across, right, Dan? I mean, we've covered, you've been in the locker room, on the road. What I've done for these years, we've been lucky enough to cover great, great, great players, and then the ones I play with. I can't say enough what it would mean to be a Pittsburgh Penguin fan and realize who you've watched for so many years. Going back to when Mario gets drafted here and before Pierre LaRouche. And I don't want to slight anybody, but when Mario got here and turned the whole table and turned the tide, if you will, and look where we're at so many years later and how many cups the team has, and pretty amazing.
Um, you know, I think one person that was probably uh, eagerly awaiting the return of Evgeny Malkin was Egor Chinakhov. Now, it's not to say
Yeah.
that we haven't felt his presence and he hasn't made an impact without number 71, but those two together have really found some magic. Last night, in fact, Chinakhov had the assist. I think it was on Gino's second goal. My question to you
Yeah.
is, um, we really saw Chinakhov find the back of the net right away by being on the same line with Malkin. So how we didn't see it last night, okay, but how quickly do you think Igor can return to that level of play?
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at it, where they were impacted when the guys were out, that was the power play and things like that. But Chinakhov, when you work so well with a couple guys, and that's Novak included in that too, right, Dan? In which you and I have talked about so many evenings. But yeah, when you put them back together on a line, and we say the ripple effect and what it has to the strength of the team as an individual player, they just have they're in sync. They understand each other's games. They're extremely highly skilled. And the release that we talked about Chinakhov and Malkin, how they win battles. Well, Chinakhov's outworked Manson on the blue line, one of the bigger, toughest defensemen that they have, outmuscles him, finds Malkin, and he buries it. So right away, there's a difference. And then they work again inside the offensive zone, holding on to pucks, and the creativity that goes with it. Dan, they're on the same. They think alike. So I think it'll only, as we move forward, what a difference. And for a player, I don't know the number two, by the way. I don't know how many points Chinakhov had over that stretch. If the power play had been clicking at all, they all would pick up different numbers. But the power play was kind of flat when you're losing such key guys. But I certainly think that when you put your star players back together, and it's a line that was dominating before Malkin was suspended, it's only going to be better. And as a player that plays alongside him, what a great feeling. You can get right back at it. They get another one tomorrow night. I don't think it gets any better for those players when they all think alike and they're that skilled. It's a great job.
You touched on the power play, and again with some missing pieces, i.e.,
Mhm.
getting Malkin and Sidney Crosby, but Chinkov has seen some time on the power play. Do you think as those two, or one of them come back, with Sidney hopefully coming back sooner than later, does he stay on that
Yeah.
unit? Does he continue to find some time there to help?
Prob- Probably the second unit, I would bet, right? Probably fall to the second unit. And we saw a little bit like some things like that last night. Um, I think what I'd like to see is, first of all, you look at it like if you had Ovechkin on the lineup, you want to take away that one timer. Well, guys are watching Chinakhov light it up with Malkin, and they're trying to make sure they take his shot away as well. It's not the same as a one timer, but he's been a lefty, Dan, on the strong side, on his left side. And what I'd like to see is if he's on a power play, and this is talking to the guys for years, from Rick Tocchet, Mario, talking about the game and about power play situations. But Austin Matthews has one of the best releases in the game as well, ever really. And he was on the strong side in the power play a couple of years ago. But you get him going downhill, like coming down from the blue line towards the net, and you get it on his stick, and then his release is phenomenal. Well, we didn't see enough of that when the stretch, when Malcolm was out. So maybe when they find and work around some of those things like that, we might see something like that. I don't think we'll see him on the first unit, but I think we'll see him we'll see him on the second. But I wonder, you never know though. If it stays flat, maybe they make adjustments. But I still think there's room for any of that. But I love if he's the lefty, he's not the one timer on the one side. We haven't seen that from him, but his release, I would like to see him be on the left side and coming downhill with that release with traffic in front, and he's going to be hard to stop. That's what I like to see.
Registration is open now for the Sidney Crosby Little Penguins Learn to Play program. Kids ages 5 through 9 receive head-to-toe hockey equipment, hours of on-ice instruction, and so much more. Sign up today.
Another player that we continue to see a lot of production from is veteran Anthony Mantha. And
Yeah.
we talked way back during training camp about some of the additions that Kyle Dubas made. And, there are new faces on a team every year. But here was a guy that was recovering from an injury that caused him to miss the bulk of last season. Against Colorado,
Yeah.
he scores his 26th goal of the season. That's a big number, but it's his biggest ever. That most goals he's ever scored in a regular
Yeah.
season, and we still have 15 games remaining. So again, what has allowed him to fit in so well? I mean, okay, he's 100%, he's healthy, but 26
Yeah.
goals? Wow.
Yeah. No, Dan, the way you summed it up, I mean, first of all, I think they're all loving playing the game, right? They're in a great spot, probably mentally when they're out there. I mean, I think that's a coaching staff thing. Dan Muse has been probably very upfront with all the players, let them know where they're at. They understand their role on the team, and each and every one of them. Just looks that way to me. I think they're desperate hockey players too to prove everybody wrong before them, and why they if you move around the league or you're bounced around minors up and down, you're trying to prove people wrong. And I think there's a number of players on this roster who are doing that, and they're just saying, "Hey, I'm playing the game. I'm playing it at a different level. The coaching staff is phenomenal with me. My teammates, they gotta love being in that room, and they're winning." And I think even when they went on the slide, there wasn't any. It wasn't a. I mean, you can feel that in that 8-game stretch. Remember when Malkin got hurt, Dan? That was the toughest time of the year. After that, they just picked it up. They've been nothing short of phenomenal. And I think each player, Dan, I just think they're just in such a good space, and the coaching staff believes in them. You're getting the results from, and he coming back from the ACL injury is tough, and it's tough as for any athlete. But in sport like hockey, it's you got to get over the mental hump of what that is, let alone the physical side. You got to get over the mental side of it, and he certainly has done that and flourished. I just think it's understanding where he belongs on his team, what he means to the team. He's a leader because when the guys are out, he's the one stepping up in a couple games when they needed, some physical play, something in front of that. He's done that. And then on top of it, he's hitting the numbers that you talked about, Dan. Outstanding. I mean, truly, it's great to see. And again, he's a threat every time we see him jumping. And also, like the breakaway goal, the great feat from Karlsson, but the finish. They all have the ability to finish. They're doing a great job. And I think these guys all, like Dan, they got an opportunity here. They're thankful for it, and they're proving Kyle Dubas. They're thanking him back. That's what they're doing, and they love the place they're in.
Jay, how about the flexibility that Anthony has shown? Because Dan Muse has kind of just thrown him,
Yeah.
not thrown him, but placed him in different positions. He's played with, or different spots, Malkin and Brazeau. He played on a line with Kindle. And it seems like maybe some are a little bit better than others, but the main thing is that wherever he goes, he finds a way to produce.
Yeah, I think that is. I mean, that's a big thing. It's you look at guys who have moved around and the ability. First of all, the skill set that he has, Dan. Right? He's a big body with soft, great hands. Great release, and then when he's using his body, when he's protecting pucks, winning. Like I said, winning the battles. He's creating space for himself. You're more valuable when you're a guy that can move around and play different sides, left or right. You're a commodity, and a commodity that's a big body that can skate and produce, and that's a numbers game. Then I just think he's been that valuable, very comfortable, and we watch him play. And it's been from training camp. I think you and I talked on probably one of our opening games we did, and he and Brazeau on the same line. Just had a natural look, and they're certainly performing and have done that minus injuries for Brazeau, but they've been a huge part. But I think Anthony Mantha, the skill set alone, Dan, he provides it. And what I really liked was when the game was a little quiet, he was one guy that was kind of stirring it up, just by being tough in front, battling, and the never say die kind of attitude.
So I want you to put on your coaching cap, if you will. When the Penguins are completely healthy, that's a lot of wood up there I'm knocking on. But when they are healthy, where do you put him in the lineup? Because again, as you referenced, he had a really good run on the mutant line along with Gino and Brazeau for a good bulk of the season. But now Gino has found a connection with Chinakhov. Where do you put him with the thought that that's the best that he can be as far as being an important part of the offense on this team?
Yeah, for me, I'm going right back to Crosby, Rakell, and Rust up top. I'm keeping Novak between Chinakhov and Malkin, and I'm having Kindle between Brazeau and Mantha. And then the fourth line has been, as we talked about all year long, Lizotte, Achari, and Dewar. Now again, we understand in the perfect world, if everybody's healthy, that's what I would do. That's how I would look at it. That's where I feel each one, Dan, each player has truly benefited a line in one way or another, and it's made them so deep that you've got production up and down the ladder. And if it ever goes quiet, which can happen, then you can adjust a little bit. But for me, I'm going right to what I just mentioned. Get Crosby right back in the middle between Rakell and Rust. Chinakhov and Novak with Malkin are too good. And then you have that big line with Kindle, and I think they make Kindle. He's comfortable out there when you have two big boys with you, and who can skate and who can finish. They have the offensive mindset. That's where I would go. And the fourth line has been great all year long.
Here, we don't just watch the Penguins. We live every tipped puck.
Unbelievable.
Every battle.
Give me more of this.
Every new prospect.
This is a glimpse of the future.
Everything you love about the Pens, we do too.
I'm down here between the benches.
You know what that means, Pens fans?
Cheers for that.
The fuck did they score?
We manifested it.
Stream the Penguins all season long on SNP 360.
Let's continue to hot stove the NHL playoff picture, because we've done that a lot on the pre and post game shows over the last couple of weeks, if you will, and it's starting to really take shape. You look at the Metropolitan Division, and there's a nice battle going on between the Penguins and the Islanders over in the Atlantic, the Lightning and the Canadiens. The wild card spot's always fun to watch. Which teams do you think will finish near the top in the Atlantic? Let's start there.
Well, Buffalo's been the hottest team right in the NHL. What they've done, they turned it around, very similar time frame, I think, with the Penguins, but they've kept it going, right? So I think Buffalo's giving Tampa Bay the run, and Buffalo might just find themselves at the top of the Atlantic, and then you've got Tampa Bay underneath it. So that's going to be the fight on that side. Who gets the number one spot? And I think Boston, Montreal, and Detroit, they're all going to be battling for that third spot or wild card. And Detroit's faltered. They got injuries, they're kind of falling down, even though they won last night or the other night. But I think that's what you're looking at. You're looking at Buffalo and Tampa Bay trying to find who comes away the number one spot. And then that second one falls into that 2 versus 3. And it's going to be interesting whether that ends up being Tampa. Do they get Montreal? Do they get Boston, kind of thing? And can Detroit keep themselves in the mix? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's more the other way around.
Down the stretch here, the Penguins have, and we talked about this last night, and I think both of us kind of hoped there would be a few more, but there's one more battle between the Penguins and the Islanders. That's on the island coming up at the end of the month. I think it's March 30th. No more head-to-head contests with the Blue Jackets. So when it comes to the Islanders and the Blue Jackets, which team poses a bigger threat to the Penguins as we move forward that could kind of make things, well, they are interesting now, but can they turn up the heat even more?
I think I almost got to lean towards, I think the goaltending, you got to go towards Sorokin, right? You got to worry. The Islanders they've added Shen. They've got Schaefer on the blue line, which has changed them dramatically, right? A young 18-year-old defenseman that comes in and has taken over the sport in the island. I think it's the goaltending part that I would want to stay away from if I had a choice. And I think you have to be careful what you wish for, right? But if I had a choice, I would go that way a little bit, because I think the goaltending, he's one of the best goaltenders in the league, and I'm not trying to knock the Columbus side of it. But I think the Penguins can take care of both teams. Again, if they're still getting the goaltending that we've been watching every night, Dan, if they continue to get what we see between Shilovs and Skinner, and they ride that into the playoffs, I like the Penguins against so many teams. But if I had to pick a choice, I wouldn't want to go against the other team, because you have a goalie that could steal the series against you. Sorokin can be that good. So I would watch out for that one. But all Columbus does is work extremely hard. And since Rick Bowness came on board, they turned it around as well, and they're right in the hunt. So either way, I think the Penguins are going to go, we don't care. But from a fan point of view and what we do, the Islanders have always been a little bit of an issue. I think the Penguins can beat them, but I do think Sorokin is that good, can make it difficult.
Okay, so grab that coaching cap once again. Which team would you rather see as a potential first round matchup against the Penguins between the Islanders and, let's say, Columbus?
Yeah, I'm going to go on. I would rather, again, be careful what you wish for. I would rather go Columbus than the Island. I just think that your whole goaltending situation, as I just talked about with Sorokin, I just think he's that good. But they've also got the youth on the blue line. They traded for Shen. They've just had a great year. When I don't think some of the teams that are in the hunt right now, Dan, if we went back to October, we've said that Buffalo's up there, the Islanders, no, the Penguins, nobody. I think you and I might have been believers just because I wouldn't go against Crosby. They're putting something together. As soon as they all felt comfortable with the coaching staff, we weren't. As trades happened throughout the year, we were already there. Other people are there now. I just think that I think you got to watch out for a great goaltender. That's what can trip you up, if you will. But both teams are hardworking. But I'm still going to go. I'd take the Columbus side.
Okay. When we're talking about playoffs, I know that a lot of times when you speak with a player during practice or after a game and so forth, and you ask them at this time of year how many of them are scoreboard watching. So let me go back to your playing days. So late 80s, early 90s with the Penguins, when they started to turn the corner and be a threat for the playoffs. No social media, no TV monitors in every inch of an arena.
No.
The only way you could find out scores was either on the 11 o'clock news that night, on the sports ticker, or turning on the radio. So, or if during the game, you'd have to look up at you'd have to look up at the scoreboard and see it during the game.
Yeah.
So how often did you and your crew actually watch scoreboard stuff, information, when the playoffs were kind of like, getting ready to take shape?
I think everybody. I don't know how many guys would say they don't scoreboard watch, but I think we all did. Everybody, we would if there was something that mattered, really became up key. No, the one thing that's so different, Dan, today than versus when we played, which was a great time. It was a great time when you were a player. You got into playoffs, you had your team meals, it was awesome, really, the feeling of being in a playoff atmosphere and what it's like when you got to April and you're in it. We would always play, like, let's say the Eastern Conference played on Monday, the West played Tuesday. So we would all be out. If we're on the road, we'd have our game Monday night, then we'd all sit together and watch, the West play, then we play Wednesday, then it would alternate back and forth as much as they could till you got to different series. But there was something very special about that, like a great feeling as a player. You'd have your team meal, we'd all go out, we'd all watch a game or follow it different ways. And when you're at home, it was a little bit different. But I really loved that kind of time frame. We all knew what was going on. I would say we all scoreboard watched. And I don't know how you can. Like right now, if somebody says they're not scoreboard watching, I kind of don't believe that, right? I kind of think you are. You have to. You just have to. It's only human nature. So I think you want to see what's going on in the world. Like tonight, I believe the Islanders are playing Columbus tonight, right? No, Carolina's playing Columbus. So you're going to see what Columbus is doing. And I think that's human nature. Plus, it keeps the excitement up. You want to see what's going on. So I think they all watch it. We watched it. Like you said, just not in the same way. You couldn't pick up your phone and get everything all right then and there. But I think it was unique. At least we had ESPN that was already, we would get all the highlights and as much as we could. It's a great time to be a player. It's a great time to be a fan because you're feeling it right now. We feel it when we're covering what we do. So and in Pittsburgh, I don't think there's anything quite like it. I honestly, it's the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest sports town to be a part of it. Everybody black and gold. That's unique in itself. And everybody following, because I'm sure you can't go many places. Everywhere I go, I get asked constantly about the team and the playoffs and what it means. And I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful city to be a part of. That's why we're here. That's why my wife and my girls, we stayed in Pittsburgh and other players. It's a great, great city to play in and then live in and raise your family here. And sports is so driven, and they truly all have that drive, and they only want the best of all the sports. So I love it. But I love the whole black and gold thing, all the teams. It's awesome.
I'm just curious, Jay. Can you imagine what it would have been like if you had the ability to have social media as a player, where you could be on your phone in the clubhouse, the locker room, looking up scores and watching highlights and immediate clips and information. I mean, it really would have been so different. Like, just wild to
Yeah.
think about that.
You know, Dan, to that point, I was even talking to Rick talking about this when he was in town with Philly, and they try and keep their players away from it as much as possible, right? Like they don't really want them diving, but who can't help themselves when they had a 2-goal night and want to see what social media, what the response is, right? So, but I
Yeah.
think they really players, then you best not look at it if you had some blunder or the game didn't go well, the team did. It's such an up and down thing. I think it would have been amazing, Dan, to be able to, like in our world, like our team on social media. You can pretty much see who the outspoken ones were, who would have been the hit on social media and stuff like that. But it is so different. But there's a completely very tough side of it too, right? So, but just to Rick Tocchet, his point, they have to be they try and keep their young players, especially their young players, keep them in control and realize what they're doing on that social media all the time. And it's something to watch out for. But I think our team would have been pretty entertaining back in the day.
I could
And
only
Rick Tocchet
imagine.
would have been one of the guys. Rick Tocchet and Kevin Stevens in that year, the second cup year. Before that, it would have been Kevin Stevens again because he's the most entertaining, truly one of the most entertaining guys I've ever been around. Mark Recchi, Brian Trottier in his own way, and Maro's just quiet. Maro just does his thing, but Olfie would have been something unique. Again, across the board, there are certain personalities that thrive with that social media stuff in that atmosphere, and I just gave out some names that I think would have been phenomenal in it.
All right, it's time to once again look back at the 2015-16 Penguins as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the 2016 Stanley Cup Championship. And our producer, Nick, has come up with a trivia question that I hope makes you think, because
I'm sure
I
Nick
still have
came
a
up with a
headache
good
over
one.
it.
We did.
And yeah, I didn't cheat and look this up ahead of time. I promise I didn't. But back in that season, the Penguins had the 5th best penalty killing unit in the National Hockey League. So which forward and defenseman led that team in PK ice time?
Wow.
Don't blame me, blame
Yeah,
Nick.
Nick. Yeah, I am blaming Nick. That's a tough one. Which forward? Wow. I mean, I'm trying to think. When did Brooks Orpik leave and go to DC?
He was not part of that squad.
Yeah, he wasn't there. So, man, I mean, like a Hal Gill, something. No, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the roster right in front of me right now. Being we covered it all, Dan. We did cover it.
Yeah, but we're getting older, and that was 10 years ago.
Well, you have to give me like, you know, I almost need to know a little bit of the. I'm trying to. It's a. There's so many roster things that we've dealt with over the years. So Nick Bonino. So Nick Bonino,
Yeah.
right? And Chris Letang. Oh,
Well, Matt
oh,
Cullen.
Matt Cullen.
What a
That's
good
very good.
question.
No, that's
Darn
a very
you,
good
Nick.
one.
Darn you.
Very good. Nick, it's a tough
Wow.
question, big man. Very, very good.
Wow.
Very good
Yeah,
question.
Nick. And again, the special teams such a big role for every team when they have success, especially if you're going to be a championship quality team. And I say that because where have the Penguins been on the PK and the power play this season for most of the year?
Yep.
Top 10, right?
Top
Just
5.
saying.
Probably almost close to top 5. You're right.
Even
You're
better.
right. I'll go
top
top
5.
5. Just say top 5.
Yeah, I mean
I think yeah. When you're in that category, Dan, when you fall in the top 5, look, top 10 is a great. If you're top 10 in the league, but when you're top 5, I mean, there's a a mathematical number. If you put together the two numbers, like the 80-some% and 20-some%, if you find yourself between 100 and 110%, that's usually, and I think if you looked at the numbers the Pens are at, they fall into that category. That's teams that when you put those kind of numbers out on special teams and are able to continue playoff run, you're usually looking at ones that are the most successful going into the playoffs. So I think what they've done, Dan, has been outstanding. It's one phase of the game that they have taken to an elite level. And no more than looking at it last night, even though Colorado is struggling, do you want to give McCarr any room? Do you want to give McKinnon any room? No, you don't. Natchez, you don't want to give them any room. They're that skilled. The Penguins just shut it down. I mean, they got shots from the outside and they got their looks, but Shilov's is good. Then your point last night, even, and we all say it too, but your goaltender has to be your best PK guy. And then the guys get clears, they do it, they frustrate, they're aggressive. I think when you fall into those two categories, Dan, and the Penguins are winning that battle, I'd like to see. We should look at the number. Maybe we will tomorrow night, but look at the number across the league. Who has the best total between the two categories, PK and power play? And I think Penguins, it's hard to find a team that's second. I believe they were second on the PK, and maybe rose slid a little bit with Malkin and Crosby out. Maybe around sixth, I think. It's really good numbers. That's winning. That's kind of championship winning numbers as you move forward.
So again, with the success that they're enjoying on the PK, let's just talk about that for a
Yep.
moment, or continue the conversation on that. What do you think the biggest change or improvement has been between the PK unit this year and last year? Because last year they were right around 18th
Yep.
for the season. So, again, Jay, I understand that some of the faces have changed, but overall, why is that group so improved?
The coaching staff, right? I think the guys understand when they step out on the ice who handle, I'm going to say they're prepared, right? Their coaching staff is huge to this right now. They're scouting their pregame. You go over what the opposition does. Dan, I'm going to say coaching. I'm going to say your goaltending, right? It's a big part of it. And then their aggressiveness. So the coaching, when I say goaltending, I don't want to take it away from how great the units work. I'm just saying you need your goaltender to come up with the big save, as we say it. And again, we just said it 2 minutes ago. Your goaltender has to be your best PK guy to have great numbers. And when they've been very, very good. So when there has been a breakdown, it's the best players in the world are on a power play. So when you're every team, you're getting their best players. So they're going to find some looks. You need your goaltender to be able to stop that. But the one thing this team does, they battle, they block, they get clears. When there's a bobble or a miss, just a puck, they jump and they're in sync. To me, very, very aggressive. But when you're in sync doing it, it doesn't look as bad. You don't have one guy running and the other one's not following up. They're aggressive. They do a great job. They get their clears. They get the saves when they need to be where you're at. That's what you have. You have to have all those things come into play. And I can't stress enough, the coaching staff, has been outstanding. Nelson, Stothers, overseeing everything. All the coaches, I don't want to short anybody. They're all been outstanding with this team. And that's the turnaround. And as I said, they earned that in the, I'll go back to this 1 second. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, Dan, but I'll go back to the idea that you go into training camp, you've had Mike Sullivan and his staff here for all these years. New coaches coming in, new assistant coaches are coming in. They have to earn the respect of that locker room, of the players. And especially when you are led by Sidney Crosby, Evgeni Malkin, Chris Letang, go down the line. And the leaders Brian Rust, the respect factor has to be gained right away. If you don't gain it, then you have a chance to lose the locker room really early. This team, Dan Muse, the coaches, they all earn the respect of their players. And they all feel, like I said, the players have paid back the coaching staff just because of that. They go out, they work hard, they understand their role. And again, they're a team that is playing freed up. And they all understand. When you understand what you're going to do without thinking about it, that's when you're a better athlete in anything, in any sport. You can't think; it's a reaction. And if you're thinking too much, it doesn't go well. The PK unit does not think; they react, and and I believe it applies to all sports. So, coaching staff phenomenal, goaltending phenomenal. All the units have been really, really good, and there's so many pieces to it as well.
So I agree with you that the coaching staff has played a pivotal role in turning
Yeah,
things around for this team. So one example of that, Erik Karlsson, much different player with this coaching staff that he
yeah.
was over the last couple of years. So I want to ask you how much he has not only elevated his game in the overall picture, but how about his emergence on the penalty kill and what he's been able to do for the Penguins?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's funny for a guy that's done what he's done in his whole career to say, where he's at, how he's playing the game this year. He has been, it is a major turnaround. He's been great in all situations, Dan. He's been, we talk about him. I could show a highlight of him every night at the blue line because he
Yeah.
really, like, you think the blue line, Dan, like you're backed up against the wall. Like that you can't make a mistake there. He's just, he steps ahead. I've said that he is reading something and he's steps ahead of the person that's attacking him. And he makes guys, if you want to look silly, go charge at Erik Karlsson at the blue line and watch what he does. Again, we could truly find a clip every night. I just think he's phenomenal at the line. He walks the line, he's getting pucks through. I think the other part is being like a lead, like a true leader. Like I'm not in the locker room. Like if you're not in a locker room, you can't get a feel, but you can kind of get a feel when you look out on the ice, like what's going on. Like what Chris Letang does. You know how Sidney Crosby leads, Malkin, all those guys, they lead in their own way. Well, when guys are down, Erik Karlsson was one of those guys that to me looks like he's leading the way. And but again, PK. I'll go back to your one point. Yeah, Erik Karlsson on PK, and he gets clears, he wins battles, anticipates. Yeah, it's been a great year. And he even came out. Not too often, Dan, do you hear guys make comments against the previous staff or regime, but there were a number of players that made comments that were, if subtle, whatever it might be, but you could tell that they're in a better space with what's going on here now than it was for them the year before, and they're showing it by their play.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true. Excellent point by you. Uh, Something I wanted to touch on because it became relevant as far as breaking news right before we sat down to put this segment together. Blake Lizotte will be out for
Yeah,
an extended amount of time now. He did not play last night against Colorado. He had missed one game. I believe it was
hmm,
against Boston earlier this month, and we kind of wondered, okay, what does that do to the fourth line? But he quickly returned. And now we see that
yeah.
he's going to be out at least 4 weeks. So, first of all, two-part question. First part, what do you lose by not having someone like that, not just on the fourth line, but once again,
Yeah.
special teams in the PK?
Yeah, I look at it. You're taking a big piece because of they didn't miss a beat last night, but his tenacity, his quickness, dogging the puck, like he's all over it. Like when he's attacking, he's relentless, and they work so well together. Chari, he and Dewar, but players are used to, as we were talking about Chinakhov and Malkin and Novak. These guys are going to go down. It's the nature of the beast, and they're used to be able to have to pick up their game with the next man up. I think, but you're losing a guy that, to me, that quickness, that speed, like I said, dog in a puck, like he's relentless in his work ethic, and he was and it just in situations you can rely on him. Dan Muse can rely on him in big time situations. Go out, take a draw. You're my man, whatever it is. I think that's what they're missing right away. We don't feel it last night because the fourth line produced, but over time, that's a big piece because there was a quickness level to him that brought everybody into the match. Like it balances out their line. And I think you're going to miss that part of it.
So, my second part to that question is maybe there's a little bit of a feeling out process to fill his absence on that line. Now, last night, Soderblom stepped in, and look, Blake plays bigger than he is, right? His style of play, he takes the ice. He doesn't seem like an overwhelming figure, but again, he's like a little water bug. He constantly
Yep.
feeling his presence, his speed, his impact. So now you've got this bigger person in Soderblom.
Yeah.
Does he kind of add something? Yeah. So does he add with his size, his weight, his reach, his style of play, maybe something that could be a little fun, a little different and good at the same time on that line with the other players, Dewar and Achari, or whoever may go into the mix?
Yeah, I think certainly he brings a different element, right? So, and I thought last night he was on pucks even quicker last night than the game before. I mean, the first two games, he was very noticeable. Third game, not as much. And then last night, back to what we saw in games 1 and 2. I think where the impact comes in is for Connor Dewar, right, Dan? Because he's the one now moving into the middle. How is he going to be in the draws? I didn't look at the numbers last night for draws, if he's taking the draws or is Noah Chari taking a draw. The defensive responsibility for Connor Dewar, that all changes now. He's the low forward. If initially your role would be down low, he's working that full ice. I think that's where I feel like you're taking him off the wall and putting Dewar in the middle. I think Connor Dewar's a great sign because he just does all those little things. But that's where I feel a little bit of an impact with that. On top of all the things I mentioned about Blake Lizotte, pulling Connor Dewar off the wall into the middle changes that dynamic. And then how has he handled the role in that defensive role that they've been thrust into throughout the year? I think it benefited Soderblom last night. He was with guys they play the same way every time. Every game they look the same. So he can fit right in. He was a perfect fit for them last night. My concern is more like when you pull Dewar off the wall into the middle, how does that change the dynamic of that line?
Jay, I'm going to close with this, and I think it's been interesting to watch this continue throughout the season. But I just wonder if things will change with the thought that the Penguins qualify for the playoffs. We've seen the rotation with the goaltenders for the Penguins all season long. It's been only a handful of games in which a goaltender has gone and started in back-to-back situations. Does that rotation, in your opinion, continue in the postseason, or do you just go with someone that hey, this is going to be our guy until he tells us or shows us that he can't be?
Yeah, Dan, I know you love you. You and I have talked about this too throughout the year, right? Just throughout the year.
Yeah. Yes.
So you bring it. This is the great time. This is the great time to even bring it up. Again, I'm not changing anything that they're doing right now. Keep rolling it unless somebody falters, right? If one of the two falters, and you're coming up a game and the points are so important, that's when you might go to the hot hand. I think in the playoffs, I think you got to have one guy, right? The guy is, because it's going to be hard for Dan Muse if, let's say, whoever the Penguins, we're lucky enough that we're in the playoffs, we're in the first round. The Pens are in the playoffs, rather, in the first round. And the opening night, and let's say it's Skinner. It's just said. And Skinner shuts out the opposition. Well, are you going to switch? Probably not. Like, that's what I mean. You got a series, like a 7-game series. You got to go with the hot hand. But there's no rule against it. There's no rule against it. It's just that the press and the general public would question you to the nth degree that, okay, your guy had a shutout the night before, and now you're putting in the next guy, even though you've done it all year long. They're going to question that. And really, from Dan Muse's part, who cares what outside noise is? But I believe that when you get a hot hand, and I think they're going to determine it by when you get towards the playoff time. And as I mentioned to you too, Dan, if there's some game that comes up and one guy's a little flat versus the other, and you need it, I think they're going to show their hand then. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to go back to this guy. That's what I think could happen. And I do think just the way it rolls in playoffs, you win, you don't change from winning. The guy, but he might do more of a switch than anybody else has done, but because they both earned it. But I'm still a believer of, kind of settling on one guy, then you can adjust, and mentally they can prepare.
It's a great conversation because it brings up so many what ifs and it just continues to filter down. You and
Yeah.
I brought this up to you before. When we have what we feel is a good show, we come off the set and we
Yeah.
go, hey, that was just like two guys sitting at the bar watching the game and kind of discussing what's going on together. This is one of those
Yeah.
conversations because you could continue forever in talking about it because, as you said, hey, it's worked all season, and here they are in the playoffs because of what they've done the previous 6 months to get here.
No, it's so true, Dan. And I think I'll look forward to us even talking about it on air when we come up a little bit here because I'm sure that topic is gonna rear its ugly head, if you will. It's gonna come back up, and which way what are we gonna do? What are the Pens gonna do? And I think that'll be good fodder for us back and forth as well, even when we're just doing our shows. It's a very fascinating topic because they both have provided something that the Penguins haven't had, that stability in the net over the last number of years. And now they have it. And I think it'll be something to monitor down the stretch. If it's really tight, I think it'll start to show. I think they'll start to show their hand a little bit as we get on the stretch here.
Jay, as always, a pleasure getting inside your head. Thanks for the knowledge. Always a good talk.
Hey, Dan, I really enjoyed. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on another edition of Get Me The Brandy.